Okay, this video is going to be about this website, Beyond Horizons. It calls itself home of the farthest picture ever taken on Earth. Right, this is what they promote. Right. Now I'm going to show you stuff to do with this Beyond Horizons website. How it has become, basically, it has maybe defrauded itself. Maybe maybe there's a better way to explain it, but you'll understand when I go through this. The reason I'm focusing on this website is because these people are obviously a creative idiots, the people who run this website, and they're obviously very dishonest, right? But their own dishonesty is, I'm going to show, it's going to come back to bite them. Originally, I was going to make this video and take apart some of their nonsense geometrically. But I'm not going to do that here. I've decided I'm going to go about this in a slightly different way, and maybe my next video in the close future will be pulling apart some of their nonsense geometrically, right? Because there's certain things they do that is not in alignment, let's just say, with a globe Earth, right? More on that in the future. The reason I'm focusing on these people is because this website, when I first originally came across it many years ago, there was no one on the website claiming that this proves the Earth is flat, or this proves or the Earth is a globe, or any of that, right? Any of that nonsense. But the observations on the site proved the Earth was flat, not a globe, right? Now, the thing is, people within the arena of flat versus globe could argue all day long about that. If the people who were doing these observations, the photographers and the people running the website, right, for this, if those people, right, weren't getting involved in the argument, they were just doing what they do, then I'd never make this video. I might use some of the observations and show them or whatever, but I would never make this video attacking this website and those who run it. And the reason I wouldn't have is because they weren't getting involved in the arena. They didn't step their foot in it, didn't dip their toe in it. But once you step over that line, right, you are then choosing a side. Now you can go with reality and go whether it's flat, right? Or you can go with the BS and claim a globe. And what this website did is it disappeared for a while. I don't know why. Then it came back, right, to where it is now, and it's pushing a load of globe nonsense, right? Now, there's no need for them to have done that. They could have just come back and just be a website like they were. I don't know why the website went down, but it did. But they came back, and it's globe this, globe that, globe the other thing, right? And they don't even know what they're talking about, right? And I'm going to show this, right? I'm going to show this here, right, in this video, and I'm going to show how their new stance completely debunks the validity of their site. Right? Their whole site is pointless now because of what they're doing. So I'm just going to go through it. I'm not going to explain what I'm going to do. And just go with me, or come along with me, and we'll go through what I'm going to go through, and it'll become very obvious what the situation is at the end, right? I'll try and hold back the point I'm making until the end, right? It'll be difficult. Okay, you have up here you have, right, their visibility facts. You have one of them I have here is object, right? You have refraction, you have air dryness, geometrics, ambient light, turbulence, air particles, right? Never mind all them for the moment. Just going to focus on the object now, and then refraction next, right? So the object in sight, this is about how they determine whether you've seen, whether you've actually photographed the object in question at a distance or not, right? Whatever, right? This is kind of some of their standards or whatever, which they throw out. The object in sight is also a key aspect when photographing distant horizons. Well, you're not photographing horizons. The relevance is specifically related with the color of the distant object. As we require, see in bold, we require a constant contrast between it and the background that will usually be moderately illuminated and light blue. Common mountains are dark brown, losing color or strength with distance, highlighted again in bold, becoming light brown or even light blue, right? Right, so with distance this is, right? And you have these photographs here, which I'll show in a minute. In this image, right, this Atlas Mountains, 870 meters, 205 kilometers away in Morocco, as seen from Mulhacén, 3.479, is it 3,479 meters in Spain, right? So this is a 205 meter, or sorry, kilometer observation, right? In this image, we can see how the mountains appear as light blue, while the sky in the background is some steps lighter, and this difference creates the contrast required, in highlighted again, for the mountain to be seen in the distance. Okay? When mountains are snow covered, the situation is different and better for us, highlighted again in bold. Snow covered mountains are light white, and the distance just decreases the luminosity while not changing the color as much in highlighted as with brown mountains. This effect is a way to assure that snow covered mountains will be easier to be seen from the distance, once again highlighted, right, in bold, as the contrast with the background will be greater. As we can see in this image above, background sky is light blue again, while the snow-covered mountains is nearly white, a colour with high contrast with the background, right? Light reflecting snow is also a help for our purposes, as this light is also increasing contrast. So they're using the fact that there's a reflection of light off the snow, as that helps with the contrast, right? So this seems okay. This is another someone happened from Teruel to Spain, right? Or is it in Spain? I'm not sure. But the point being is that the point I'm making is they need contrast in your photograph. So you take the photograph to prove that you're actually seeing it. They need the contrast of the mountain or object with the background, right? This is important. And they're saying, right, over distance, a mountain without snow on it will start becoming kind of a blue, light blue, or dark blue, or whatever, right? But with snow on it, it will still hold a lot of this kind of white glare or whatever. And with the the reflection of light off of this snow helps as well, right? So I'm just going to show these a second. Sorry, right? So I'm just going to make it big. So you can see, just to show exactly what they're talking about. So there is one of the this is the one with the snow, right at the distance. Obviously it's there, you can see it. The snow on it proves that it's there. And the reflection of the sunlight off of the snow, all this proves that that mountain is there, that is actually being photographed, right? Here's the other one without the snow, but as you can see, it's dark blue or whatever in color. And you can see the contrast with the sky in the background. So that proves that it is blocking what's to be seen in the background, because it is actually there. In a straight line of sight, the photographer is seeing it, right? So this is some of the standards that they require for your photograph to be entered onto their website as proof that you have a long distance photography, or sorry, that you have taken a long distance photograph, right, of an object, mountain, whatever, right? So once again, you can see the one with the snow and the one that is that is dark blue. So there are some of their, just going to break back down. Some of their standards, basically, right, for if you want to get your observation onto their website. So then we go into here, which is the visibility facts. Again, we did look at object, now we're looking at refraction. Right, as defined in Wikipedia, refraction is. Now, Wikipedia is not a source. That is obviously not a source for refraction, because Wikipedia can be changed by anyone. So Wikipedia, if that's what they're relying upon, is obviously not a source, of honesty and truth concerning the refraction of light. But either way, it's interesting that they that they cite Wikipedia, right? I'm not saying Wikipedia is no good as a reference here and there, but Wikipedia itself can be changed. I know this myself because I've changed a few things on Wikipedia pages that were incorrect, and the people came in and changed them back to the incorrect position that they were in before I changed them. So Wikipedia is not, that's why Wikipedia is not cited. You can't cite Wikipedia because anyone can write any rubbish on it. So, refraction. In our case, this is them, the wave changing direction is the visible light, right? And the transmission medium is atmospheric air. Now that is some heap of total rubbish. Light is not a wave, right? Mathematically, you can mathematically treat it as a wave in some instances, but it is not a wave, right? Direction is the visible light, and the transmission medium is atmospheric air. Atmospheric is begging the question. That is begging the question of a sphere Earth and an atmosphere, right, that surrounds it at pressure in a vacuum. That is all nonsense. It's circular reasoning, and it has absolutely nothing got to do with refraction. First of all, I'm going to start with light, right? Light is a particle, as proven, right, via Albert Einstein getting the Nobel Prize for his work with the photoelectric effect. He's not responsible for the photoelectric effect, but he's responsible for detailing and explaining it, right, at the time to the greater, I don't know, community, right, the media and whoever else, right. He's responsible for that. That's what he got the Nobel Prize for. The point is that the photoelectric effect, right, proves, it's not the only thing that proves it, but it alone proves that light is not a wave, it is a particle, a photon, a chunk of energy, right? And the photoelectric effect proves this. I'm not going to go through the photoelectric effect now, you can go through it yourself. It proves this because light has to be a particle for that effect to take place. It does take place, light is a particle. It's that simple, right? Light as a wave will not cause that effect. Okay, that is one of the main reasons why they know for a fact that light is not a wave. Also, right, one of my own critiques is that waves don't diffuse. Light diffuses. That's where you get the inverse square law. How does the inverse square law, how does that adhere to a wave? It doesn't. Right? Waves don't diffuse. But look, I could go on about that longer and longer, but the point being is that you can go to the photoelectric effect, the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment, and other, like it's a known fact, right, that by those who study it within quantum mechanics, that light is not a wave, it's a particle. I mean, the photoelectric effect was a big driving force of quantum mechanics. Do you know what I mean? Quantum mechanics only exists as it is because they found this out. That allowed them to go further, right? Because they had a different mindset then. So the whole wave nature of light is wrong, right? Otherwise, the photoelectric effect wouldn't exist. Simple as that. Anyway. Point is, this is all wrong, right? There is no wave of light, right? That's rubbish. So we move on. Air temperature varies along the height. Decrease the height would that be off a horizontal plane. Decreasing from surface to tropopause, approximately at 11,000 meters above sea level. Yeah, what they're talking about there is roughly 10 meters, roughly 9-10 miles above sea level, another horizontal. And they're talking about how the temperature changes. It starts getting warmer after that. Now that's a major issue for people who think it's a globe, right? Not an issue for those who understand things, but it's an issue for those who think it's a globe. Not for me as a flat earther, that's not an issue. But point being is that that's what they're referring to, as it's warmer closer to the surface and cools down up to about 10 miles up, right? I think it's about 10 miles up, it's about minus 51 degrees, something like that. Okay, this temperature change modifies air properties. Does it? No, air is still air. Specifically, it changes density, and so it changes its refractive index. It changes refractive index, does it? No, the refractive index of air is the refractive index of air. That's not correct. It doesn't change its refractive index, because that's not what the refractive index is based upon. Right? It's the refractive index is based upon the speed, right, that light will take through a medium. That's what the refractive index is based upon. Right? So each medium will have its own refractive index. Air has its own, water has its own, whatever other medium has its own. All these different mediums have their own refractive index. But the refractive index is about the speed in a straight line, right, that light takes. Now, this is a way of describing it. I don't know if light even has a speed. And I think it was Snell himself, Snell Descartes or whatever, within that whole thing, that it was presumed that light was just more or less instant. Light was instant, and I think in quantum mechanics that they showed light to be instant, with debunking the whole C from Einstein's equals mc squared, and from special and general relativity, blah blah blah. Point being is that, and even Einstein himself agreed that the whole speed of light thing was just an agreed upon convention, right? So it's all nonsense, right? There is no one-way speed of light ever measured, right? There's a two-way. You can have a calculation of a two-way reflection, blah blah blah. That's not a one-way speed of light measurement, right? Point being is that when you're talking about the refractive index of air, it doesn't change, right? Right. What happens is there's less air as you rise, because there is a greater density closer to the surface of Earth, and as you go up, that due to temperature, right? Due to temperature, there is obviously a density gradient is created by the temperature, right? So that's what that's about. But air itself, its refractive index of air, and the refractive index of air is the refractive index of air, right? Air doesn't suddenly start becoming something else just because there's a greater concentration, or as even the use of the word density when referring to air and gases is wrong, right? I was even corrected on this myself, because if you're going to refer to the density of air and gases, you have to talk about them in their cubic inch density, right? Per cubic inch, or cubic, centimeter or meter, or whatever way you want to describe it. But it's purely, as far as the density goes, air is gas. Gas is unbonded. So, it's only the concentration of the amount of gas atoms, molecules, particles within a cubic meter or whatever. That's what that's about. So none of them are bonded to each other. That's why gas diffuses, kind of like light. You know what I mean? Not saying that light is a gas or gas is a light or anything like that, but that is the truth. They both diffuse. That's why a gas is unbonded. And light is a photon. Light are like chunks of energy, not a wave. So the only way a gas can diffuse is because it's not bonded. But what they want to do is conflate gases and liquids, because they're both fluids. They're both fluids because they both flow through pipes, different things like that, and they both will take the shape of their container, right? But doesn't mean they're the same state of matter, right? So this nonsense about air and a change in the refractive index of air, that's a load of rubbish. When looking at a distant mountain, the line of sight is not always at the same height above sea level, right? As shown in this figure, right? This is nonsense, right? So when looking at a distant mountain, the line of sight is not always at the same height above sea level as shown in this figure. So if you're looking at a mountain, right, that is the same, at a point on a distant mountain that's at the same height as you're at on your mountain, and you're looking straight horizontal at it, they're trying to say that there's a change in the air density between the point you're looking at and where you are, in the concentration of air through that straight line. No, there isn't. That's a complete lie, right? There is an angular size change maybe to the mountain, and maybe there's an angular size change to the mountain in the distance. That happens. That debunks a globe, right? A million times over, because there is no such thing as is shown in this diagram. There is no such thing as an angular size change, right, on a globe. It doesn't exist. Everything is or curve or it's nothing, There is no angular size change. There is no perspective effects. Point being is that they're trying to claim that as a person here is looking across to the tip of a mountain over here, right, that because they're divergent zeniths here, that there is this bulge between them, and that changes, right, that changes the supposed concentration of air along here, because you're getting closer to this curved surface, right? So that means there's a greater concentration of air close to the surface. So they're trying to say that changes, that causes a change for you, right? When looking at this mountain, the line of sight is not always at the same height above sea level as shown in this figure. This is not sea level. Level is a horizontal plane. Sea level is a horizontal, right? This is a curved line. This is complete nonsense. This is why I'm attacking these bullshitters on this website. So this variation causes the traveling light to cross air at different conditions, curving its trajectory as a consequence of changing refractive index, right? That's rubbish, and I'm going to show it in a minute. They don't know what they're talking about. And then allowing hidden mountains to show up above the horizon. What they've just said here is in contradiction to this, so I'm going to read it again. This variation causes the traveling light to cross air at different conditions, curving its trajectory as a consequence of changing refractive index. Right, that's right. Then they say, and then allowing hidden mountain, right? Hidden mountain. I should be saying, then allowing a hidden mountain to show up above, right, your horizon, not the horizon, right? So what they're trying to say is, when you're looking at something, your line of sight is curved. No, that's not. Well, that is not. That is not 7 over and greater than 7 over 6R. That is not what they call atmospheric/terrestrial refraction, which isn't, it's non-refraction because it's not refraction. That is not it. I'll show you what that is before I come back here in a second. Right? This is an arc length here. Let's say this is a globe arc of radius 3959 miles. There is an arc length of 2,000, let's say 105 miles, whatever, right? Here is the same arc length here, right, on a bigger globe. What they claim, right, if I zoom in here, you'll see, look at look, what would be a geometric drop from the tangent to this point, right, from this person here. If they're looking straight out, that's their tangent, is their line of sight, right? There would be an actual geometric drop from this tangent down to this point, but that is not terrestrial refraction, or I should say terrestrial non-refraction. Terrestrial non-refraction is where the globe has expanded in size for the observer, right? This is all mathematical, based off of the unmeasured geometry of a globe Earth that never happened, right? They don't have any measurements to base their 7 over and greater than 7 over 6 on, right? But what it actually is not what that stupid website is trying to say. They don't even know what they're talking about. It is, what's happening is, the claim is that this object here, because of 7 over and greater than 7 over 6R, it has increased the apparent size of the globe Earth. It is unbending the globe, right? So the line of sight stays straight. It doesn't curve like, if I just go back there a second, it's not curving like these idiots are trying to show, and these frauds who don't even know what they're frauds, and they don't even know what they're talking about. Makes it twice as bad. It's unbending, so when eventually it unbends enough, this will appear up here, especially if it's a high object. The claim is that it'll appear up here in the straight line of sight of the observer. Right? It's bullshit mathematics based off of a geometry that was never measured, a geometry that is a back engineering of flat Earth, flat plane measurements. Remember, latitude and longitude grid, right? And that is what it is. And they add this in because you can see mountains at a distance. You can see these big mountains at a distance that debunks the geometry of their globe. So they need to make up a heap of rubbish for them to be able to tell you how you can see these things that are just there, right? This is what they're trying to do. But they have it completely wrong, because they're curving the line of sight here and keeping this surface here of the same radius. No. This surface has to have an apparent radius now that has increased, right? So this mountain comes up into the straight line of sight of the person looking from here. So the zeniths are not as divergent. The zeniths start to become parallel, bringing the mountain up. That is their claim. That is what 7 over and greater than 7 over 6, right? 7 over 6 is standard refraction. Greater than 7 over 6 and 7 over 6 are all terrestrial / atmospheric refraction, right? It's 7 over is called standard if you go to Debunking, right? You will have right, 7 over 6, right? Let's show you here. 7 approximate radius of 7432.83 kilometers. That's the 7 over 6 that they're talking about. Sorry, there it is. Sorry, 6371 kilometers. Sorry, where are we? It's here somewhere. I think I'm looking. Yeah, that's the refraction one. Sorry. So the I don't use kilometers much. So the point being is that the 7 over 6 that is there. That's the standard, what they call standard refraction, which is not refraction. That is 7 over 6 of the radius of a globe, and you'll never see an observation that will show you the actual globe. There's always some amount of terrestrial refraction. This is what they have to say because there is no globe. So they have to say that, right? So, but what these people don't realize is that they're not even able to describe 7 over and greater than 7 over 6 correctly. They're not able to describe terrestrial refraction correctly. They don't know what it is. They're curving this line of sight. They're curving a tangent. You don't curve a tangent. Even just show. Where are we? Debunking. Right. Even Debunking isn't curving the tangent. Right. Eye height, eye level. That is the tangent. Surface level. That is the tangent. They're not curving the tangent. Right. You know what I mean? There is no curving of a tangent in Debunking, because that once you curve the tangent, right, it's not a tangent anymore. The line of sight is the tangent. So this would be the tangent. And say they have them looking down. Right, there's no one looking down, and because there's no one looking down, everyone's looking in a straight line. They then have to try and tell you that you're actually curving your line of sight. No, I'm not. You don't know what you're talking about beyond horizons. You're boneheads. You don't know what refraction is. You don't know what light is. Right? You should be describing this situation where there's an unbending of a globe Earth, causing this here to raise up. Apparently up into the observer's line of sight. That's what it is. The thing you can't see that's well below the tangent, well below on a globe, is suddenly being brought up by terrestrial refraction, so you can see it in your straight line of sight. That's what terrestrial refraction is, right? And to prove it, I will show, right? I will prove it, right? If you're talking about, let me see, I'll prove it here, right? If you see an horizon near, right, that appears to be near an island, and that island is 9 miles away, right? How do you determine how much terrestrial refraction there is? Shout out to Adam Meakin. I'm going to use his calculation for this. Well, you take, let's just say, you take the distance, right, which is you square the square the distance. So sorry, go back there. Right, so 9 right squared multiplied by 2640 right equals 21,000 right. 213,840 right. And let's just say your eye height. You're seeing an apparent horizon near an island that you know is 9 miles away, and your eye height is 20 feet. So you then divide that by your eye height, right, 20 feet, right, and you get this, right. That means that is your new apparent radius, this here. So then, to find out how much over 6 order is, you divide that by 3959, right, 2.700. Right, and then you multiply that by 6. Multiplied by 6 equals 16.2 over 6r. So what it means is that the way to describe that would be if you're seeing an horizon that appears 9 miles away from you from a 20-foot observation height, then that means that there is 16.2 over 6r. Now maybe the observation was a little bit high. Should have maybe brought it down geometrically. Point being is that that's how you determine how much over 6r. So for this observation, there was 16.2 over 6r. Right, that has to be there for you to see at 20 feet elevation, for you to see an horizon that appears to be 9 miles away, based off of an island that you know is 9 miles away from you. So that's how that works. That's how you determine how much over 6r there is. Now, that means that this, right, your horizon, which on the person's horizon here on this globe, right, it's not really an horizon, it'll be a leading geometric globe's edge, will be here, right? But on this here, it will be here, right? It'll stretch out further. So what that means is that it is the unbending of the globe is what gives you, right, the claimed unbending of the globe is what terrestrial claimed non-refraction is. No, so it's not what these people are claiming. It's not a curving of the line of sight, right? There is no curving of the line of sight. There is an uncurving of a globe Earth. And as I said, they have to have this because the globe Earth doesn't exist. So you'll be, when the weather clears up, you can see things at massive distances that debunks their geometry that doesn't exist as a measurement. And they need to come up with some rubbish to explain that, and they do by basing mathematics off of that geometry that they have no measurements for. The geometry that's a back calculation of flat Earth measurements. So that's what they have to do. So, long story short, I know what I'm talking about. These people are pretenders and bullshitters. Right? There is no curving line of sight. That doesn't happen. And down here you have this light curving effect of refraction, right? Not refraction, can be clearly seen in this picture of the rising sun with a deformed shape as a consequence. No, that is what's known as the sun mirage. Once again, not refraction. Mirages aren't refraction. Right? They're all happening in a single medium, not refraction. Right? This is the sun mirage. This is what, that may be the sun here. That may be the sun. This is not the sun. This may be the sun here at a distance. This here is not the sun. Right? This, I'm just going to make a, let me just see, open image, a new tab. Let me just show. Right? Let me just make it a bit bigger. This here may be the sun, right, at a distance. This here is not the sun. In the morning and in the evening, you have what's known as the sun mirage at the horizon. It is not the actual sun. This is the thing they've called the sunset for years when it's not the actual sun. Because the sun either hasn't reached that point yet, or it's already gone further away from that point. So in the morning it won't have reached the point, in the evening it will be already gone away from it. So the point being is that you can see a big huge sun at the half a sun at the horizon in the evening time, and it's the same size as it was earlier in the day, or even bigger. By angular size, I should say, but if you measured it, like, because all the glare here and whatever. Point being is that it is not the sun. Officially, there is no sunset. It doesn't happen. Officially, it's called the sun mirage. They just didn't tell you all that. But you keep on fighting for this globe that doesn't exist. And one of your proofs is this sunset that doesn't happen. Not only is the sun that's claimed to be setting and rising claimed to be just a mirage, so not actually geometrically there, but the horizon is also not geometric. And it's a horizontal line, rate of slope 0. Right? How do we define curvature? A change in the rate of slope over distance. That means curvature must have a rate of slope. The horizon has no rate of slope. The horizon is purely an optical phenomenon, purely an optical location. There is no way to determine the actual distance to it because it doesn't have one, right? There is no sunset, so this is all rubbish, right? But, oh, sorry, I went the wrong way, right? Back here. So, here we have the nonsense where they're saying this is refraction. No, it is a mirage, it's not refraction, it's all happening in one medium. So, well, let's go on to Snell's law, right? Right. Snell's law is a change in the angle, right? It's a change in the angle of the light, right? So the more dense, right, the medium, right, is in general, like water, right, the more the light will tend towards the perpendicular, right? Let's just say the vertical. Whereas the less dense the medium, the more the light will tend towards the horizontal. It's probably the easiest way to describe it, right? So let's say sunlight is hitting the surface here. It has to be a horizontal boundary, right? And the angle of incidence changes, right? The angle of incidence causes a change in the angle. So this will be 30 degrees, but this might only be 15 or 20 degrees. Let's just see it that way, right? There is no curving happening here. This is a straight line and then another straight line. It's a change in the angle. Angles do not have curved lines, right? There is no curved line. This is a change in the angle, right? That's why when you put a spoon into a glass of water, a glass that's half full with water, you can see that the spoon, right, will have a change. The spoon you see under the water will look very different from the spoon you see above the water. If you don't have any water in it, the spoon won't have any change at all because you only have one medium. You add the second medium and you see the refraction happening to the spoon. That is what refraction is. That is Snell's law. It is not like a change in the density of the medium. No, it is a difference in the densities and makeups of the mediums. Right, that's what the refractive index is. So the refractive index of air is different from the refractive index of water. Right, the overall refractive index is different for both. But that doesn't mean if you have a density differential within any of these mediums that suddenly changes the overall density of the medium or changes the Snell's law or changes the refractive index of it. It doesn't. There is no changing of the refractive indexes, right? You can start trying to change them by adding in pressure and temperature and other nonsense that has nothing got to do with Snell's law. Look, it's about the angle, right? The angle here when it meets the surface and the changing of the angle. That's what it's about. I'll go on to the, where is it? Sorry, is it? Right, here, right, particle path, right, particle, remember, right, light. You have fast medium, slow medium. So it's claimed that the light moves faster through less dense mediums and slower through more dense mediums. So light will tend more towards the horizontal in air and more towards the vertical in water. Right, so Snell's law requires horizontal and vertical. Requires, overall, it will require flat Earth, right? Because the Earth is flat. But point being is that these people on Beyond Horizons don't have a clue about what they're talking about. They don't know what they're talking about. They think that's somehow refraction. That's somehow this rubbish. But this is not refraction at all. This is not what they're claiming is not refraction, and this is not refraction. There's no curve. Show me how you have a curved line in. How can you have a curved line here? How can you have this? You can't have a curved line. You know what I mean? You can't have that in Snell's law. That is refraction is a changing of the angle of the, you know what I mean, due to the boundary, the interaction the light has with the boundary between the two mediums, that surface. That's what it is. There is no curving of the light. Light does not curve. People need to wake up. That doesn't happen. There is no curved light. Now, people might say, oh, what about a fish tank with sugar water in it, right? Now, sugar water is not air. It's water with sugar dissolved into it, right? It's a completely different medium. It has its own refractive index. And if you're talking about shooting a laser beam through that fish tank of water, the laser beam, right? If you look at the demonstrations, they always try to tilt that laser beam up the way. Number one, to extenuate the amount of curve that will happen to that laser. The only reason the laser curves, right, in sugar water is because sugar is dextro-rotatory, which means that light when a laser, let's just say, shone through it. We don't live in lasers and we don't live in sugar water, but the point being is that the laser, when shone through it, will bend down slightly or take a downward path slightly. Now, with something like nicotine, which is levorotatory, the laser will bend or take a path upwards. It won't, right? And that is, so when they show you a fish tank with a laser and they say this is refraction, it is as much as the laser has the medium of air, then the glass, and then the sugar water. That's three mediums. So yeah, that part, right, the angle of incidence there right? With the boundary you have the boundary between the air and the glass, then the glass and the water, right? That is refraction. But the bending thing, or the changing of the direction of the light, and the bending is only extenuated by the fact that the person tilts up the laser. If they shot it straight through it, it will go straight and then slightly tend towards the back corner of the tank. And the tank is a flat plane. So it doesn't prove anything, right? It only proves that whoever's putting it together is a fraud and they're trying to deceive people. The refraction part of that whole thing is not addressed. They're calling the change in the direction of the light inside the medium as the refraction when it's not. And they're ignoring the fact that the audience don't know that they're using sugar water, which is dextrorotatory. Right, sorry, dextrorotatory. So the whole lot is a complete and utter fraud. All of it is a fraud. That whole thing is a fraud. The only part of that as I said, that is refraction is the angle that the light is coming through and interacting with those two boundaries, air to glass and glass to water, blah blah blah. Right, that nonsense that they're doing inside the tank, right? They're making happen because they're tilting up the laser. All that has nothing to do with anything, and that won't happen. You can get just on the whole point of density. You can get another solution that with the same exact density, and even if there's a density gradient within the medium as the sugar water, but if it's not dextrorotatory, the light will not do that. And if it's not levorotatory, then it won't do that in the opposite direction, in the opposite vector upwards. So that whole thing is a complete fraud. So when I say light doesn't bend, it doesn't. In reality, light is not going around the place, bending all over the place. Right? That is not refraction. Refraction is a change in the angle of the light, and they basically describe it as faster and slower. Right? That's how it's described. I don't know if that's the correct description for it, but that's how it's described. I wouldn't totally agree with that. But that's the diffusion rate as well of the light within air and in the likes of water, right? Point being is that what they're claiming is not refraction. None of this is refraction. Now, what's the point of me going through all this? Is it right? My point is very simple. If we come back just briefly to here. Remember there what they said. These are the all highlighted and emboldened. We require a certain contrast, right? This is how they determine that you're seeing the object, and the object is really there, right? To have your observation on their website, right? This is how they determine it. This is definitely there, and they know it is because of the light and how it's interacting with the snow, and because of the differential here with the light with the background, how this is all blocking the background. So that means that they're agreeing, right, via their own standards, that you are photographing that mountain, that mountain is actually there, and you're actually photographing it. But then you come to this nonsense and are claiming that you're not seeing the mountain, you're photographing something that isn't the mountain, right? This variation causes the traveling light to cross air at different conditions, curving its trajectory as a consequence of changing a refractive index, right? And then allowing hidden mountain to show up above the horizon. So what they're claiming is that this mountain is being lifted up above this person's horizon. That's what they're claiming, right? As I showed earlier with this, that's what's actually happening, right? If I see if I can, it's only increasing the size here. Point being is that if I, one second, I just go up here like that, and I bring this back down to 2, right? As you can see, as I go up, one second now, I'll show you it. Right, as I go up, right, and I bring it back to 2100. Oh, sorry. Let's say about that. Let's zoom in. As you can see, if there's a high object here, they're saying that object has been brought up. So if I just get a segment a second and go here to here, right? So there, right, sorry. So what they're trying to claim is that the globe has increased in size, right? Apparently, for the observer, allowing this object here, allowing for this object here, right, sorry, to be seen, or more of the object to be seen, right? This is what they're trying to claim, because when that object is on their little globe here, you can't see it. So it has to be lifted up. So what's the point I'm making? For those that may not have understood it yet, is that their whole website, they have just torpedoed it. And why have they torpedoed it? Because they are now claiming that the person that's photographing the object are photographing a refracted object. Now, it's not refracted because it's not refraction, but the point is they're claiming that is not the actual mountain, and this is not the actual mountain. So the people who have photographed these mountains are being claimed by this website to not be photographing the actual mountains. So how can the people who are photographing these things be given awards or be placed onto this site, and it's said that they have achieved a massive straight line long distance observation between 2 points, geometric points on the earth, when it's claimed that these are not geometric, when this website themselves are claiming that what people are seeing is not really there. They've just torpedoed the, so every one of these, all of these, this one, the Pic-Gaspard one from Finestras, Pyrenees, the Pic-Gaspard Alps, that famous one, and all the rest of them, they're all thrown in the bin by this website. This website just threw its whole purpose for being in the bin. Because they're claiming that the people aren't photographing the things, claiming the people are photographing basically a mirage. So if I photograph a mirage at a distance, will I get my observation on their website? According to them, right, that's okay, even though their own standards, right, require it to be geometric. If your standards require it to be geometric, how can it be refracted? It can't. You can't be geometric and refracted. Right? If I'm photographing a claimed object that's claimed to have been a miraged up, well, even though mirage is not refraction, but the point being is that if it's claimed to have been miraged up, call it what you want. The point being is that it's then not a geometric object. So your whole site is a joke. Your whole site is over, finished. And all because you decided to get involved in this argument, right, and bring things into it that ye obviously, as I've shown, do not understand. Right? And ye are a joke, your website is a joke, and me and some others are going to continue to annihilate ye as time goes on. I've just shown how I didn't torpedo your site. I've just shown how you people have torpedoed your whole site. So I can just send a photograph of a mirage to you, and that's good enough, based off of your standard on this page, this part of your page, that is in opposition and contradiction to this part. This mountain is not there according to you, and neither is this. So how can someone be claimed to have photographed it at a distance? There is no distance to a mirage. Mirages don't have a distance. You can't give them a distance because they're not geometric anything. Your site is bullshit. And it would have stayed as a good site, it was a very good site, if he just had stayed out of the argument. You didn't like it. What this site didn't like is they were proven outright that the earth was flat years ago. They didn't like that, and they decided to try and go against that, and all they did was destroy their own credibility. They have no credibility. If you're claiming that this is a mirage and this is a mirage, and that if we go to this here, right, that this is all a mirage, if that's what you're claiming, then your site is, then if all that is a mirage in the distance there, then your site is over. Because there is no distance to the mirage. You can't claim a distance. You can't say, oh, that mirage is 200 miles away. You can't say that. Your site is finished. It's a joke. If your site is up there any more than a day after this video, then it shows that you people are accredited dishonest liars. But it doesn't matter because your site is a joke. And people, me and other people, are going to be headhunting your site in the future, pointing out all the geometric issues with it and all the fraud with it. But I just pointed out how ye yourselves have destroyed your own credibility by trying to be smart people. When you're not being smart, you're being stupid. Anyway, Thanks for watching. Bloody idiots.